Hello people, and welcome back to part 27 of Ilos, our modded Cities Skylines build. Hope you're having a wonderful day, and thank you so much indeed for all the support during last week's stream where we carried on expanding the Lauren J Park. And a wonderful example of what an impact playing with different layers can have, right? Now I've got road, train, bicycle highway, walking paths, and just look at the layers, everyone. Yes please, it's so good. This is where so much of the satisfaction of this game lies for me, crafting little sort of public transport channels like this. So nice. Really happy with it. And yeah, we just carried on bringing out the park, brought in a wonderful little rainbow light pattern, and then also some further park assets. Some nice pathway designs, so all really fun playing with mods with a really large park for the first time. And it sits just fantastically at the foot of the skyline now, doesn't it? Enormous fan of this. However, in today's episode we are heading to the technically north side of the downtown, which is this riverfront over here. So actually this side of Phoenix, if we're looking at it from the correct orientation, ignoring the compass, a lot of this is very heavy industry, but we're kind of bored of doing that. We have an opportunity with a waterfront here as well today, and also some nice tourism sort of possibilities. Unique buildings in here, some new high density designs, all very interesting indeed. So there's no inspiration to take from today because Phoenix doesn't have a waterfront and we're within the downtown, so we are definitely working with Phoenix. But some nice ideas in store today as to what we can do with a nice big high density touristic waterfront. That should be quite a nice time indeed. So let's build Ilos's tourism waterfront, shall we? Okay, so first things first, we definitely have some sense of centralization going on here, right, with the palms coming down the road. So this is very much going to be sort of the focal point of the waterfront. And I've got some ideas by actually removing the frames from the initial centre. And then we're going to come into tourism. We're going to grab our tourism assets. I'm definitely going to play initially with the fantastic fountain, which does centralise by itself quite nicely. Now, for some reason, I have actually bobbed this asset before, and trying to bring in the hedges that are actually back here, it doesn't work with Bob. The hedges have gone permanently for me, so I'm going to have to manually place in some of the hedges that we've lost because Bob does not want to do it for me anymore, but we'll deal with that. So I just want to move this back so it's ever so slightly disconnected, and we're going to come into our road networks, and I think I'm feeling a touch of one way. So we'll go ahead and grab this. We'll go for the Vanilla Plus version. We'll snap to our road guideline and then anarchy on as well, of course. Let's also turn off road bending. Then want to snap into the guideline that hooks up with the next node that we broke. And exactly the same process over here again as well. See, double check by 14 units here. We'll be able to do the same here, 14. There we go. And then just invert this one around to the side. So this is going to give us a really nice open plaza feel, but of course we're not finished yet. We're going to use the fine road tools in order to force these sections here into bridges or elevated sections, alright? That should be quite fun. Then we're going to dive into the wonderful world of terraforming. We're going to bring our brush strength right the way down. And then we just want to start sinking down a little bit. Nothing too major. A relatively shallow pond, if you like, but I think we know what's coming, right? We're going to be doing a nice little sunken water feature today. Okay, let's go ahead and adjust our fantastic fountain. So it sits with a road connection, which should be about there for it, I think. That should be good. We will also do just a very brief touch of node controller here. I want to remove the pedestrian crossings, and then we'll stretch everyone out. And then just offset our greens and our oranges to 34 meters. Right, that's going to really widen out the node, give it a touch more importance as well. So I could just rotate the fantastic fountain at the minute, and that should give it a connection there. Okay, let's make sure that we're still respecting the centralization, which I think we are. Fantastic. Go ahead and get the rest of this terraform now. Let's go ahead and grab some keys. So I think I'm going to go with the simple seawall keys, of course. Always a firm favourite at this point. And let's snap into the grid. And then we'll just come in for 14 units like this. This should be okay. Get right the way through towards the bottom. That should be fine again. We know we're up by 14 units at this point. And then we really want to sort of manually align this So what was that distance there? 14 units again. Can I repeat that on this side? Yes, we can. So of course it's using more nodes, but I think it's very much appropriate for this, right? This is a very sort of nice, heavily landscaped tourism waterfront. Going to be some nice ideas coming together today. And we've also downloaded, we will have a brief look at these in a second, and there was a new network pack on the workshop, which is called the LA River Network pack, and it's amazing. It's so good. Let's have a look at this just while we get briefly distracted. So new networks, so they're very much taken after the sunken networks that are in LA. There's lots of different versions of this. It's essentially a canal, right? And, you know, it's just like narrow versions of it, like 42-meter ones with detail. Really, really cool. So, and they're actually functional as well, right? They're going to carry water for us. So, whilst we're not using these today in the downtown waterfront district, I'm very much keen to try and bring one of these sort of very Southwest American floodways perhaps through the Mar grid, or at least out into the Lake Havasu build somewhere. So do let me know down in the comments where you would like to see those LA River networks implemented into Ilos. We will certainly be using them, so it should be quite interesting. Okay, so we've dropped in our water source. This should now start to fill up. I'm going to be happy with this, alright? This is going to be quite a nice time. Then before we move on to some residential designs here, let's just throw down a couple of unique buildings. I do know a couple of candidates that are already suited to this area, including the Theatre of Wonders. Okay, we can have this here. Let's do a little bit of mass surface painter as well, just so we can get a sense of sort of the open concrete plaza vibes that will occupy this space. Okay, and then there we have it. So of course, plenty of detail to be had around here. Lots more benches and indeed some rocks and some after dark lights within the water feature, but I think it's a nice sort of central fountain plaza for our tourism area in the downtown. This is going to serve quite a nice job, isn't it? Wonderful notes. So I'm happy with this initial configuration for right now. So what I do want to do is also bring down the tram network from the stadium. So let's come into the wonderful world of tram roads. So we're going to grab ourselves trams here. We're going to upgrade into 4-lane road with tram tracks. So we're not going to do that as a bridge though. We want to force that to ground. Thank you very much. Okay, so the trams are now going to come down into our waterfront. This, however, does need to be elevated section. Let's make sure we account for that. So we're going to have it come down here, and then we're going to move into one-way, well, not one-way, but tram-only roads, which again is another massive node eater, but it's worth it, okay? I think it's the downtown build it deserves to have the proper respect given to it, doesn't it? So, just nice big stretch of downtown tram road. I'm also going to break the keys here a little bit because I think they were a little bit too long. We also had a comment on this during the downtown road network frame episode. I do kind of agree. So we'll bring the trams in like this. Wonderful, they can hook in like that. And then we will designate a space for them to turn around. So we're not going to finish the whole waterfront today. You know, there's a big chunk of it over here that also wants to be done. And eventually the tram will want to flow into that space over there as well. So let's leave 3 tiles between the road and the tram line. We will let that just run parallel for a little bit. And hopefully now a little curve tool with the road guideline should allow us to bring the tram down. So I will do a very temporary sort of tram turnaround point. I think we'll also partner this eventually with an intercity bus station. But for right now, it can hold our trams. Go ahead and grab them. So you will now leave the stadium complex, coming down into the waterfront district. We'll just drop it here for right now, and then we'll plan in our stops on the way down. So there's going to be Green Cities residential here today. We are going to be doing this build, so this can be a stop for the residentials on this side. And then they also might as well stop near the pedestrian crossing on this part of the road. That's wonderful. And then essentially just every other pedestrian crossing that meets within the road network frame now should be enough stops for our tram. And then of course it can sort of go off and down here eventually as this side of the downtown grows out. But for right now, that is going to give us some trams within the downtown waterfront network. We do also have a metro line here as well, which is currently flowing but not powered, so no one will be using that. So let's come into our metro tracks again and see indeed what it is that we're playing with. So we do have, of course, big Metro Plaza here. which doesn't need to be brought down here. I'll probably feed these into the airport, I imagine, but there is a track here. This is Metro, and this flows into the Mile grid. And then actually back into... Oh, wait, there's no Metro line on this. Why? You guys not flowing? Or am I just being stupid? Yes, I'm being stupid, aren't I? There we go. Doesn't have the screen on. That's why I wasn't there. Okay, yeah, so this is the Mile grid. Tram, train stop even. Metro is the word we're looking for. So let's come on to this station here, and then it might as well just extend straight down within the downtown waterfront area. Now I guess it's really just a case of where we want to bring it through. I am temporarily, I think, just going to include a regular metro stop, and then we'll decide come that particular bit of downtown waterfront whether or not we actually want to upgrade into one of the content creator stations. But either way, that is going to be yet more major public transport convergence for Ilos. So what I'm doing with the public transport is now 2 metro stops, plus the tram line down here, and there will eventually be intercity buses as well. Plus the transport hub's just on the other side of the downtown. So that should be well interconnected for intercity tourists to get down to this area now. Otherwise, I'm not too bad. Okay, we've made some adjustments to the road frame, discussed the central plaza design. I do want to come over here now and have a little chat about what's going to happen with these circles. So let's do some finagled green cities housing, shall we? So within the 4x3 pool within high density residential in the green cities stuff, we have these sort of quarter oval buildings, right? We've seen these before. We use these in Canal of Area and Canal of Un all the way back in the vanilla builds. And there's something really fun we can do with roundabouts with these buildings. Okay, so we're going to use a little bit and move it, and then we're going to position these in. I've also bobbed all of these assets because they're plastered in fencing, which is quite irritating, and benches and sort of hedges and stuff. So just use bobs to remove all the props because they do encroach upon the road when we use them like this. Okay, and then just by bringing them into little sort of full circle patterns, by positioning them correctly, we can now create these little green cities, sort of towers or cylinders, if you like. I can occupy these roundabouts near perfectly. It's a really cool design, right? So of course these are going to be part of our skyline very much so. So it's important that they follow the crawl in height, and of course with all residential assets there's 5 levels of them, each of them getting taller. So I'm very much happy for this to continue over here as well. So we'll do one more together and then we will time-lapse this up. So just a really nice fun way of using some of the vanilla assets with, you know, just essentially one mod. This is just Move It that's doing this for us, or Unploppable Rico as well, or Plot the Globals, whatever your chosen preference is. Position these ever so slightly centrally, and then we'll see how this looks now. So it's almost quite an experimental sort of housing project. You know, perhaps there's some older, more dilapidated sort of 70s or 60s flats knocking around here. And now as the waterfront begins to attract value, that the Ilos developers are very much thinking, you know, it's attractive waterfront now. It's not just a dried out, nasty, industrial riverbed anymore. It is very much indeed a desirable place to live. Alright, cool. So let's time-lapse these up, again respecting the skyline, sort of tallest at the back and then crawling down the height as we come towards the river. And then we'll do something with the land around it as well, which will be nice. Okay, so here we go. It's quite bold, isn't it? It is very much a unique housing development, but I think I'm on board with it. Alright, now perhaps this was some sort of old industrial scrapland, but has now been redeveloped. However, the project is not finished yet. Let's come back into level terrain. We're going to right click the height that we've set at the plaza 2, And then I want to start scooping out everything. But actually, before we do that, just remembered, we actually want to come back into these and upgrade them into elevated sections. Okay, so just a few here and there. I also want to lose a few connections off of these. Let's remove the node here with network multi-tool. Force that into elevation. And then probably this one as well. And maybe this one. Okay. So now these are actually bridges. We can scoop under them and you can see what's going to happen here, right? So this is sort of a practice in, developing some new residential ideas by forming the road network first and then doing some terraforming around them. And then indeed, if you have access to the better landscaping tools mod where you can place the water sources, then you can do some really interesting, cool things with designs like this. And of course, lots of fencing and detailing. And as always, after dark lights around the base of this sort of development here should really help bring it to life a little bit more. And there we have it. Okay, so I've also brought in a prop fence around the entire perimeter. And again, there's lots of overgrowth and palm detailing to be had around here. But I hope you see the impression, okay? And we can even get a further impression, probably again, by just upgrading some of the roads into the actual palms themselves. And I think around the internal ones, why don't we go for a touch of the old California shorty? It's always a favourite, right? So upgrade this in a few places. And then it should just give us a really unique looking housing development now, okay? Really happy with this idea. Hope it's not too garish. It is very, very bold. But it's something a little bit different, isn't it? Okay, a little bit of Move It and some favourite Green Cities assets go a long way to creating a little sort of wetland residential district. Really cool. Really happy with that idea. So of course the water will continue to fill up as the game goes on. However, let's return to the waterfront area itself. So I have an idea here of placing in another tourism building, which is going to be the casino. Now, ever since I've been starting playing Cities Skylines, I've always wanted to do something with this asset, very much like we did all the way back over in the Tucson University. First time I saw this asset, I always wanted to bring a road under it, and now thanks to the wonderful world of Road Anarchy, we can, which is amazing. So we're going to do something really similar with this road over here. So let's come into our roads. We're going to grab a one-way US one. This is pretty nice. Let's first of all position our casino. So I want to have it on the corner, just at a slight angle. Now it would be good if we could maintain the metro station directly out front. That would be quite a nice little convergence point. And then with the one-way road, I now want to draw this directly underneath the casino sort of entryway. Alright, been wanting to do that for ages. Now I finally can. Thank God, Road Anarchy is amazing. Okay, so we've got a little cut-through road directly out the entrance to the casino now. I'm really happy with that. I think that's a really cool way to use the casino building itself. So I'm going to enjoy that. Let's keep that going. Though I do need to let the game play for a little bit and accumulate some more money, because this is a massively expensive build. I'm also feeling the last of the museums down here as well, I think. If we place this in, and then again, just a little bit of finagling to position it exactly where we want. I'm thinking we'll just align the back of it with the road. Make sure everyone's happy. Make sure we don't lose the road connection though, ever so slightly forward. Okay, again, I think it's a nice sort of big, impressive waterfront building that's going to partner really well with the casino directly out front of here. There is a random purple tram on this line for some reason. You should be OE trams. You are a rogue purple tram, but that's fine. We'll let him sit around for a little bit. Okay, and then of course, as always, lots of service painted in between the more awkward areas, and during our detail and time lapse. There's lots of planters and props and benches to place out the front here as well, isn't there? So that's going to be quite nice. So now that we're starting to place buildings within the sort of downtown area itself, let's jump back into the world of ploppable green cities. And we're going to be using a lot of commercial buildings here for this. So there's a good chunk of the commercial assets from green cities that will work really nicely within this waterfront, including some of the larger ones. So this one right here, I'm not entirely sure what it's called. I think the name changed every time, doesn't it? It's the Eco Center apparently. Whether or not that's its official Green Cities name, you will find out if you do this yourself. So I just want to spin these around into each other. Now this is very much a idea inspired from one of Few Candy's builds that she did with some of the healthy weed stores. Now some of the Green Cities assets just work tremendously well when they're sort of blended into each other like this, making sure of course that you're not encroaching upon any of your major road networks. Okay, so I don't think I'm going to hate that for right now. I definitely want to add a little bit of curvature into this road here as well. Now let's just give everyone a touch more breathing room, shall we? Okay, just position everyone how you like. And then, before we know it, we now have sort of a new unique building that's got lots of different angles on it, lots of different layers, cutaways, a little bit of back alley entrance as well. And that's going to sit really nicely as part of our nice waterfront, isn't it? The same can also apply to many more of these Green Cities buildings. It's really up to your own sort of imagination, you know, what you can turn them into. And some more specifically chosen Green Cities assets are going to be more than welcome. Let's continue to add some of the larger ones in. Definitely get the car dealership looking one in here too. You know, perhaps the Ilos drivers have written off their third car of the year and now need another one. So they come down to the dealership on the waterfront to buy them. And then knowing Ilos drivers probably immediately drive them into the lake. So we're going to have a real mix of different types of commercial zoning around here today, alongside some high density residential too, to finally chip away at the demands that Ilos has. But initially, I think I'm going to be pretty happy with this little Green City street that is developing now. We certainly shouldn't neglect the world of low density commercial. A lot of these assets certainly work quite nicely in and around builds like this. Definitely feeling a couple of these which go really nicely together. I think we'll have a few of those in. We'll also go for one of my favourite little corner assets, which is this 4x4 vanilla high density one. It's just such a perfect little corner unit. You can't really deny that one. So we can now just sort of get an impression of how this little main street through the waterfront is going to start appearing. It's going to be quite nice, isn't it? I think everyone's going to be appreciative of this design. Let's also not neglect the world of modern city centre commercial, because indeed these ones are really quite nice as well. So there is one of the corner blocks. It's not this one, it's this one, isn't it? Yeah, so this modern city centre commercial unit actually has hotel written on the side of it, which is kind of perfect for what I want, you know? Sort of like a downtown hotel that's maybe sandwiched into sort of a department store. Right, it's a little bit of multi-use. We can very easily sort of quad up this pattern with a touch of move it and a little bit of finagling with the old control, just so we're as aligned as we can be. And this will just give us a nice little block of high density looking downtown commercial now, where it has some appropriate signage on it. You know, you'd imagine there'd be plenty of hotels down here. And we certainly will be playing with some of the after dark hotels as well today. Alright, but that's not too bad, is it? Happy with that. There is a lot of trams here. So they're just slowly staggering out over the line. I wonder if there's been new trams added actually. There probably has been, since the line's extended, and they're all trying to stagger out again now. Okay, but there you go, you get the point. And now there's more patterns we can do with the modern city centre commercial stuff. There's some really creative things actually once you have Find It and Move It installed as well. So some of these little ones here have the little covered verandas on them. However, they are not all the same depth, which allows us to create some really interesting patterns with these if we can pick out the right ones. So we'll do a 2 deep one, and then we'll switch to the 1 deeps. And you can see with the little covered verandas that they just have on the front of them, when we do this in different patterns on either side, it's just going to give us a wonderful little layer of depth on the street, right? It's very subtle, but it makes a big difference. Right, once we have that block in, let's grab every single one of them with Move It. And then we'll just do a little Control and C to copy the entire block over. And then we can just duplicate these up here. So you do get a little bit of tearing with some of the assets, but you can mostly bear with it. It's really just aligning them so it covers the back end of that commercial unit. And now, just another block here, but it's not sat perfectly against the collector road, is it? It's just ever so slightly off on an angle that respects the angle of the main waterfront road. And indeed, I think I'm going to be happy with that. Again, with all these little sort of areas around here. Lots of surface painter and indeed further prop and sort of commercial detailing is always going to be appreciated in these sorts of areas over this way, isn't it? So again, it's another little block in our waterfront that we can come to enjoy. Let's come back into the world of unique buildings, and indeed I think I'm feeling the music club from the After Dark stuff, or the concert stuff even. And then the ploppable world of Ploppable Rico. Oh well, find it, plot the globals here I guess, isn't it? Just want to pick out a few of the old favourite hotel assets now. Some of the ones that we tend to be more fond of, I think. Let's definitely get a nightclub down here too. And then maybe this sort of beach, bulky gold beach hotel as well. I'm happy with that. Okay, so that's going to be really nice. It's all coming together slowly, isn't it? And then where we do have some slightly more awkward spaces, this is where our sort of ploppable shops from the tourism and After Dark specializations are going to come in tremendously helpful. And indeed, we can certainly position this little diner asset a little bit more thoughtfully. Let's definitely get the little veranda on the front of it to align with the corner of the road. So, I already know a lot of these assets as my favourites, but it's all about just playing with different assets that you don't usually use. Different angles and different themes, and then as we start to position these together now, of course maintaining their road connections, we're just going to start generating a really tightly packed in, cutely designed sort of nightlife district. And then we can just see this area coming to life a little bit more now, right? We're seeing new layers develop and new heights, new sort of important water frontage buildings coming down here, and indeed things that are sitting in as part of the skyline as well. So I'm happy with this, it's nice. I am, however, absolutely burning through the Ilos treasury, so I'm going to go make a coffee, let the game simulate for a bit, and then we can come back once Ilos actually has some money again. Okay, so now that we've discussed some of the commercial waterfront action that's going to happen down on the Ilos downtown waterfront, I definitely want to bring in some services in here as well. Let's go for one of the larger vanilla police stations to set up on the corner. Okay, we'll definitely have that facing into the larger plaza. And then we'll also do a fire house as well, which I think probably the larger vanilla one, again, is going to give us the most appropriate sort of feeling, isn't it? Okay, and then we'll have this over here as well. So we can factor these into our sort of main roads and commercial districts around the plaza. So there's one unique building that we left out of the skyline. Now this is the Colossal Order offices, and it's a tricky one most of the time. It's very white, it's very blue, and it's very, very wide. Essentially like a fat smurf, really, for lack of a better comparison. However, when we sit it at the end of one of the downtown roads, it kind of works perfectly. So I'm tempted to include it, and I think I'm going to bring it in. Okay, we can have it sat here against the rail line. It does look very corporate indeed, doesn't it? It's very big, so I'm going to go for it, okay? It's also going to be a nice addition into the main skyline here too. So we're going to go for that. I think I'm happy with it. Let's come in and do some car parking around it. Of course, all these main large assets always work nicely when they're complemented with a little bit of car parking. So we'll certainly bring this in. It would be nice if we could get in the road right here. We definitely want to bob this building too. Let's go ahead and get rid of those awful vanilla trees that are sat at the base. Thank you. And maybe just move it over a touch. I don't want to lose its positioning too much because of how it sits at the end of this big one-way downtown road network. So I really want to respect that view if we can. Oh, looks great with the metro passing by now, doesn't it? Oh, yes. I always catch a new angle of downtown Ilos every week, and it just makes me smile so much. Really enjoying this build, everyone. I hope you are all are as well. So let's go with the 40-meter lot, and then we will pretty much just wrap this thing up with car parking. Let's go for a road length and an angle sap here, actually. And then we'll have this come in at about there. We can now amend these nodes to bend out. Okay, and then it would be cool if we could do another one right here. Okay, I might even change this one into service road. If we can upgrade it. There we go, just so it's wrapped in car parking. And I think we can do some nice sort of open green space perhaps at the foot of this, almost like it is some kind of you know, big corporate headquarters. Alright. So I think I'm happy to have that in. At least for the time being. Of course, we'll get some car parking placed. So what I'd also like to introduce into the waterfront in order to carry on satisfying some of the residential demands is some slightly older sort of tenement buildings that are knocking around. So again, we'll have these as sort of solid tower blocks. So imagine these were sort of built in the 70s or the 80s, right? These are very much older housings. And they actually work very nicely just set opposite the rail. Okay? And then what I'd like to do is come back into the wonderful world of high density green cities. And then piece together a few of the 4x2 at level 2s. Okay, so these are going to be sort of more modern looking apartment complexes, more modern developments. They have sort of, you know, built-in Wi-Fi and Bluetooth and maybe a Starbucks in the lobby, right? All the comforts of modern day that are just sat nearby to these older developments, almost as like, you know, the same vein as what's happened with the Green Cities developments over on this side. You know, this was once sort of older, perhaps less desirable land, but as the city has grown out and new sort of developers have come in, then, you know, the old is being replaced with the new, but in some parts of the city, the old still very much sits alongside the new, which I think I'm very much on board with that particular aesthetic. Again, let's not forget that we are playing Cities Skylines. People are going to want lots and lots of park activity, for which I think we can provide that in the form of basketball courts. So we're going to position these directly behind some of these residentials here. I think I'm happy with that. And then we'll just grab these three. And then we're also going to draw these out onto this side. Let's come ahead and grab ourselves a regular road. Probably just use our plain US 2 lane. This one's always a firm favourite, isn't it? And then there we go. Okay, you can have even possibly double up the basketball courts here if we like. We've got the room for them. Okay, and then just create a little forecourt within the middle of the apartments. Okay, and then we can definitely do some more sort of finaglable green cities patterns here. And what this will also do is continually add into the crawl up into the main sort of downtown financial district where the main skyline actually sits in itself. So again, I think I'm pretty happy with that aesthetic there. And again, there's lots more sort of finaglable green cities patterns to be had within this space here as well. We could possibly go for very, very highly repeated. If we like, we just want to keep bringing in these two here. Let's make sure that we are just selected with these. Okay, and then just let pathways sit between them. We will need to work with building spawn points and indeed probably a couple of little sort of shiftable angles as well, just to help these actually function as residentials, because of course they're not actually sat on a road. Okay, but you get the impression, right? Lots of high density development, very much copy and paste housing, you know, get them up as quickly as possible, make them look as nice as possible, and then get people in them. It's very much the vibe that's happening over here. Okay, it might not go this heavily repeated, but you can certainly get an impression for it, okay? As to what that will look like eventually. So, going to go ahead, get some car park. Oh, are we going to have an autosave? Please don't crash, Ilos. Oh, thank God it didn't. My word, I thought we crashed then. Has it crashed again? Oh my God, what is happening? There we go. Okay, Ilos hasn't crashed, it just scared me for a little bit there. Okay, so in order to carry on pleasing the green people, well, not the green people, the grass people, I mean, I think I'm feeling a little bit of grassy space in and around the foot of the corporate headquarters here. I think that's going to be quite appreciated, isn't it? So let's go for that. Okay, and then little bits of service paint set around the base. And again, there's lots of sort of corporate detailing to be had here. Benches, planters and whatnot on the corner of all this parking. Do some nice things with this at some point today. But I do appreciate the aesthetic of that. It's very bold. I realise it's not going to please everyone. We will certainly get a few comments saying, why did you include the fat smurf within Ilos? I'll actually rename that. Should we go for that one? I think I'm quite on board with that. There we go. Apologies to any fat smurfs that are watching. No offence intended, I assure you. Okay. But it's coming together now, isn't it? It's really starting to build up. So I think we're definitely going to use this little circle, sort of semicircle road here as the sort of midway point for the waterfront build. And then as we come over to this side and embellish with more, perhaps some more political vibes that extend out the governor's office, and then more residential zoning within these spaces. This side of the waterfront will of course develop. So I think the last thing we'll do here is carry on bringing some big vibes onto the waterfront before we look at a detailed time lapse for today. And I'm very much a fan of running with, again, another unique building. But before we do that, I'd like to do a touch of the old car parking. We're going to go for some 40-meter lots. So I'm going to bunch up a lot of nodes here. This usually isn't a good thing to do, but we should be okay because it's only in a very specific section of the town. Other than that, we should be alright. Okay, let's not do it there. That's not a fun node, is it? Doesn't look like it's particularly enjoying itself either. And I'm also going to upgrade this main waterfront road into something else as well. It's not just going to be the American medians all the way down. Okay, so let's have this here. Let's grab ourselves a service road. I'm going to hook this back in. And then we can just bring that down and then provide a connection in. I'll slightly adjust it. Might as well grab this treed road. Upgrade it into that point at least anyway. Okay, getting some worker demands of course. This is just a enormous influx of commercial, but hopefully once we get some residential patterns in, this will start to subside a little bit. Okay, so lots of car parking. Again, lots of nodes very close together. Usually I wouldn't advise this, but we can get away with it here. You definitely don't want to be doing this on like a big main road. This would be bad times. But then, let's go ahead and grab another unique. I think, again, I'm feeling the inclusion of the posh mall to sit around here somewhere. So let's place it down. We're going to grab ourselves a little bit and move it to finagle it into position. Again, let's just align it here so it sits somewhat sensibly in the spaces that we've made for ourselves. Of course, it's going to need a connection, so let's go ahead and pick our treed roads again. Then we'll bring this down. And hopefully that should register as the connection once we just jiggle it across ever so slightly. There we go. Okay. And again, I think that's quite a nice addition into the skyline, isn't it? Again, positioning the asset so it respects the internal crawling height, which adds to the master crawling height, which now continues to flow up to the main skyline, of course. Alright. But otherwise, we're not too bad here, I don't think. Certainly a big mix of ideas at the minute. It just needs detailing, doesn't it? And then we should be having a much nicer time, I think. However, guys, this does feel like a wonderful place for a detailing time-lapse. We have a bunch of work to do here today, including, but not limited to, a vast amount of surface paint to work in and around the main waterfront assets. I'm going to carry on using plot the growables to place in commercial units, just piecing together different green cities, high density commercial, perhaps a bit of low density commercial in here too. Nightlife and tourism, exactly like we've been doing here, just to carry on filling out these little micro blocks that we've got dotted all the way around the main central lake plaza. Come in with some rocks to hide the sand and then bring in some after dark lights around the central plaza as well. Very much like we've done with all our waterfront features in Ilos so far. So carry on respecting the aesthetic of the waterfront if you like. Bring in lots of sort of natural green algae overgrowth around what you would imagine would become pretty stagnant water in this heat, especially in the desert as well. So detail all this up. And then of course change all the trees on the roads to palms, also through the main city as well. Change these up for California shorties. Bring in the car parking spaces and then lots of little prop details in and around the main spaces where we can afford them. And then some slight refinements to our residential patterns that are sitting in the downtown, just so we can have sort of old meet new, sort of a little more effectively and a little bit more sort of nicer, not so obviously just copied and pasted like that. But it should be a fun one, and indeed Alice's Waterfront should be a really nice addition to sit in front of the skyline right once it's all finished and pieced together. Oh, and also upgrade the main road probably into one of the Vanilla Plus ones, I imagine. Yes, we'll probably go with the 6-lane avenue with trees with no parking. And then if we get this in with our workshop palms, I think this should be more than appreciated. Makes a massive difference, that, doesn't it? Just having some palms in front of all the main buildings. You know, and then yeah, plenty of surface painter as well between the tram line and the road to sort of flesh this out as almost like recessed concrete tram line. Okay, and then lots of walking pathways back and to between it to make it functional. Also on the quays too, and then also bring in some more natural rocks over this side to detail up the sort of tram area. Some people waiting for another tram here as well, which is good. Nice to see them getting use. And then also use node controller as well. We will very briefly come in with the mod. And then grab these ones and change a few of them into crossings. So Sims can move back and to between each side without having to walk all the way around the edge, which of course would be ridiculous in real life. Alright. Wonderful. So let's detail Ilos' downtown waterfront district. And then we'll be right back. guys, so let's have a detailing review. An awful lot has happened. We've got a lot to cover here. So let's start with the main plaza, where we brought in some of our classic concrete shelters. If people need to escape the sun, then they can do in the central square, alongside some sort of eatery detailing just so people can grab a hot dog or whatever. Alongside some further commercial developments in some empty spaces over this side with some prop detailing, a classic umbrella and benches to match what comes with the asset as well. Or olive garden action in here too, which is always appreciated, I think, isn't it? Throwing in some cut-through roads to function as car parks with some green cities accompaniments, and then also some further refinements to the green cities patterns, which have continued over this side indeed with some more car parking and tables within the spaces, and some different styled green cities repeated action as well, all coming together quite nicely alongside the old stuff which still remains in this area, sort of land yet to be redeveloped, if you like, to function with the rest of the build. We then come to the Das Corporation Square, which has been named after one of our wonderful Patreon subscribers, and also finagled some more green cities skyscrapers in. So from whichever angle you look at this building now, it has little angles and layers on it, and that really comes together quite nicely, I think, alongside some more modern city centre stuff, and some multi-storey car parking in here too. Lots of street level detailing involved with planters and our usual gravel sort of hold things, alongside red bushes and benches, alongside selective use of vanilla commercial assets, which I think are blended in quite nicely with the main street. Coming along the main street into the main plaza square, we have some very carefully chosen vanilla commercial assets, which are blended in quite nicely along the main road now. All the different shapes on their frontages as well, sort of blend nicely into developing a little bit of depth against the street, which is quite nice. Opposite the water, it's mainly green cities action just been placed in and dragged into position with Move It, so it creates a nice cohesive commercial front, which you really get an impression for looking at it down this view here. It's just nice and busy, nice and touristic, and really happy with the way it came together. There's some further setback commercial over this way, alongside some more industrial detailing around the back of them, almost like a delivery area, alongside of course another sign for Vote for the Governor. We've fully upgraded and carried on the dash lanes with intersection marking tool across the waterfront, just so they don't break every node. Again, like I mentioned when I did this is not a good idea to do usually. This is going to be a relatively quiet road because the city will end here. So we can afford it, but don't do this often and everywhere because this many nodes close together isn't good. Outside the casino, we centralised the metro and then done some more prop detailing with selective commercial around the back fused into the back of the casino alongside a hotel, which I thought could maybe be like a hotel that's part of the casino. That was the thinking behind that. Then again, there's been some more cute tourism assets dragged into place in and around the waterfront, which has come together quite nicely. I think it can be quite hard to use these tourism assets, but I think we've managed to bring them in with Find It and Move It, just help them sit a little bit easier. One of the restaurants on the piers to sit, which just about connects with the road connection here, thankfully, so this is actually functioning, which is nice. And we do also have a few people waiting at the tram stops on the quays now, which is nice to see these coming to life a little bit. And of course, as the tram line continues down and more things come in and around it, this will of course get busier. Brought in some nice overgrowth patterns and fences and sorted out the trees around the Gary J. Waters district, named after our wonderful Patreon subscriber Gary. Thank you so much for all your support, my friend. And now we have this wonderful, sort of really unique green cities residential build, right? These are so flexible, these assets, but they work really nicely with water. And I think opposite these little rock formations, it just gives a really kind of natural angle to the skyline, doesn't it? I think if we come over to sort of the park one here, you know, it's very sort of green and a very obvious park vibes from this angle. From the governor's office, we're now generating some more political high density vibes to the skyline. And then over this side, we now have sort of more touristic, entertainment, bright and good times to be had sort of view to the skyline. And now from this side, we have a very natural sort of overgrown rivers, rocks and green cities vibe, right? So I'm really liking the way that all the angles of the downtown are slowly coming together. And of course, there's a few more to fill out. We'll have the oil refinery somewhere over here, which will give us a very industrial look. And then of course, we'll have that classic suburbia look from this side as it all grows out. So really happy with that, just sort of a little side note. Super cute the way it came together. Also throwing in a couple of parks and a child healthcare centre to kind of function as like a front office maybe for this area. It's like obviously kind of very special project living, not just on the street house if you like. And then also brought in some cute little pathways in the corporate square, just in and around some more finagled green city shapes, which I think works out quite nicely. It just gives a little more open sort of land and grass around the corporation square, which I think I'm quite happy with. It's nice just to have some open green fields that, you know, don't have parks or playgrounds in or whatever. It's just open grass, so I think we can accommodate those. And then on the very edge of the left-hand side here, where we are going to transition into some suburbia, which will be a next build. We'll do some nice finagled residential stuff for the downtown here. So of course this will be transitional space, so this will change as we move into that side of the city, as always. And then if we take a look at the nighttime view without revealing too much, we have brought in the turquoise lights in and around the plaza. And then we saw at the start now, we can see that the green lights in front of the Green Cities development really does help to pull it off a little bit more, don't they? Yes, please. Very happy with that. So yeah, the nighttime view came together really sweet, but you'll see this during the cinematics, of course. However, guys, that is going to do it for today. I would like to thank you all so much for watching. If you have enjoyed the episode, likes, comments and shares below really do help me out. Equally as much if you haven't enjoyed it, then please feel free to leave me a dislike as well. This was an enormous space to fill. And indeed, there's quite a few different vibes here with tourism, green cities, general entertainment, lots of commercial, and some very unique residential as well. So a real combination of different styles, but I'm really happy with the way it came off. Of course, we'll continue to detail and slightly expand this area during our detail live streams. Please do hang around for some cinematics because this new waterfront just sits so nicely in with the skyline. And we can now see kind of right to the opposite end of the mile grid with full metropolis sprawling out in front of it. So it looks really good. And I hope you enjoy it. But otherwise, I will shut up and I will leave it there. I'd like to thank you all so much for watching. And as always, enjoy the rest of your day.